I'm Rudolph Herzog, and I'm the director and writer of Last Exit Space.
My name is Werner Herzog. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm the father of Rudolph. And he invited me to be along on the shoot and being executive producer. And the voice in the film, the commentary voice, was a great joy. From time immemorial, we humans have looked up at the night sky, marveling at billions of tiny specks. Settling on distant planets was once the domain of poets and dreamers. But with every leap in technology, we come closer to realizing their dreams.
This is an instinctive urge of our species to migrate into space. We should go as soon as we're capable of going.
Billionaire entrepreneurs are venturing out into space in a testosterone-fueled competition.
We do face existential threats. We have one home.
Have we humans outgrown our little planet?
It was really Kepler that suddenly started to find thousands of planets that we never knew existed. Many generations would live on those ships, and then your descendants would one day arrive at this planetary system.
If things go wrong, we won't be just able to opt out and take a module back down to Earth.
Sulfuric acid rain, crushing gravity, radiation that would kill a person in less than a day.
Will we seek our destiny in the stars?
Astronauts report a fuel short, T-minus 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, I'm Sonia Wineset, and this is an episode of Filmmaker Focus. We have with us director and the executive producer of Last Exit Space, Rudolph and Werner Herzog. Thank you for joining us. How are you?
Very well indeed, thank you.
Yeah, we are 9 hours apart, but doing fine.
The miracles of technology. How did you two come together for this project?
Well, we came together because I'm his father. I know him since a long time.
The original proposal for this, the original idea, I sketched some 3 years ago now. So it's quite a while ago. And I actually thought it wasn't really, I was unsure if it would really resonate with the public. I was really unsure if it was even that good an idea. And since like me and my dad talk, as a parent and child would talk, we were just chatting and he said, what are you up to? And I said, I wrote something, but I'm really unsure about this. And I'm not even sure if I'm going to pitch this. So and my dad said, well, what is it? And I said, well, this is what it is. It's about sort of like colonization of space. And is it possible? And should we really be doing it? And he was like, oh, no, this is a fantastic idea. Don't throw it away. You've got to pitch it. So actually kind of we owe the project to my dad in a way. So this project would have never materialized without his intervention. He had a vision. He said, like, this is something you really should pursue. I'm really happy he put my feet to the fire.
And I would like to add that we consult on a regular basis. I would send him, let's say, a rough cut of my last film. And he gives me his opinion and his notes. And sometimes I look at his things, and he is a writer, and I look at his books. What can I say? When he came up with this idea and he was not very sure, I said to him, are you crazy or something? This is big. This is so big, you have to do it right away.
Well, I mean, Werner, many of the films, your films are about visionaries, adventurers, or those living beyond the ordinary. So why do you think you're drawn to these types of characters or subjects?
Well, in this case, you have to be cautious with naming the people who are in the film as visionaries, because as the film shows, the ideas are there. Theoretically, we could reach other stars if we had 200,000 years' time for travel. Fine, yes, good luck. Or we could We could bring people to Mars. That's possible. A small group of astronauts, researchers, scientists, but not 1 million people. We should not colonize Mars. We shouldn't be like locusts, grazing our planet empty and then move on to the next one. Secondly, it is not doable. It is not doable. We will not have enough water and breathing air for 1 million people. It's not possible.
I think that, like, if you look at the film, there are people in it who I think genuinely deserve being called visionaries. So Luciane Walkowitz was a fantastic astronomer. She was part of the Kepler mission, where they discovered like unbelievably many exoplanets.
And it was really Kepler that opened its eye and then suddenly started to find world after world, these thousands of planets that we never knew existed and that imply the existence of billions of planets more. So it really, really changed the game and really opened up the universe to us.
So this is going from literally just suspecting that there were some, but not really being sure, to being, sure that there are thousands, millions, gazillions of exoplanets out there. And I think she is somewhat of a visionary in the sense that she has a very humanistic vision of what space exploration should be. So she's not against going out there. She says, like, by all means, it's within us as humans to venture out into space and to discover. That's just as part of what we humans are. But it's got to be for the right motive. So what my dad's just been sketching is probably like the colonization is a very, very bad word in the first place. So I think she's like Luciane's in the film, she points this out. And very much this is one of the things that really motivated me to make the film. It's just like, I thought, well, hang on a second, colonizing is not a good thing. And the idea of just using up the planet and then going somewhere else, like throwing it away like a used tissue and going somewhere else, is just that's not what we are or what we should be. So like what my dad said with the locust, so she really deserves being called a visionary in the sense that she has a very humanistic vision of what discovery and exploration and science should be. Science, just opening a space of knowledge where there's none. So she really, I think, has been part of a revolution in astronomy that's singular. And that will stand out, I think, in our generation as the most important discovery, maybe in science, but certainly in astronomy. So I think like you have to look at the individuals in the film. And I think she certainly like super deserves, so Luciane, if you're watching this, you are a visionary. I really think that's the case.
Yeah, sure. And I'm saying essentially the same. She's for exploration. I'm very much for exploration. I would love to be on one of those missions. If I could bring a camera along, I would do it tomorrow. Even I said it to Elon Musk in a film that I made, and he was on the internet, and I said, even if it were a one-way ticket, I would do it. I would go out for bringing a film.
I want you to stay here, just to clarify. Like, I want my dad to stay here. So, like, Ella, don't give him the ticket.
Anyway. Okay, so don't give me a ticket, but I'd love to send every day a short movie back from Mars. But colonizing with 1 million people, it's just you don't need to be a scientist. It will come to an end like some other big technological utopias will come to an end in our 21st century. They will come to an end like immortality. We will not gene manipulate our DNA to such a degree that we will become immortal. Forget about it. You don't need to be a scientist to know it's not going to work. Nature's fundamental principles are not in favor of that. And the utopia of colonizing Mars, for example, with 1 million people, you don't need to be a scientist either. Just sit back and let time take its course. Why does it take so much time until we have the first astronaut up there? It will still be a long time because it's so hostile out there. It's so hostile, so inhospitable there. So just sit back and wait and let it fizzle away.
And while we wait, watch the movie, because we actually go into that in quite a lot of detail. Like, what's technically possible? What are the obstacles? Like, how could we work around the obstacles? The crazy thing is that a lot of people now and big institutions working on solutions for the various things, even intergenerational travel, going on spaceships that'll be like traveling for 5,000 years. But there are people working on this and serious institutions that are trying to crack that. So like in the film, you'll see some of those people and you'll see some of the ideas and judge for yourself, I would say, if it's possible or not. But I actually, space, we hear in the film, I can give that much away. There's an astronaut who's used to be the commander of the ISS, so the International Space Station, Mike Foale, and he was in one of the worst accidents in space history in the collision on Space Station Mir. And he's seen it all. And I mean, it's like devastating, the kind of stuff that you have to deal with out there.
Space is a hard environment. A vacuum at a temperature on average ranging from minus 200 Celsius all the way up to plus 200 Celsius. That's a huge variation of temperature. And of course, there's no air. And if you go near a window that doesn't have ultraviolet protection, you get sunburned in 30 seconds. And you'll also occasionally look out at your spacecraft and you'll see holes in the solar arrays. And you go, oh, wow, that was a rock that went through.
Rudolph, I'd like to hint at one thing without giving much away: antimatter. That would be the most intense form of creating energy. And at CERN in Geneva, near Geneva, they are already produced tiniest micrograms of antimatter. But the problem about it is to create the amount of antimatter for propelling a spacecraft for a longer time would take a few trillion years.
Now, to get to Alpha Centauri, my reference is Star Trek, which has the Enterprise. And in the Enterprise, there's this huge warp core running with antimatter. That's a couple of tons worth of antimatter, but we can be a little bit more economical than that and call it a few kilograms, which means that not only do you need 10 billion years, you actually need something like a factor of 1,000 or 10,000 more than that, which is probably longer than the age of the universe into the future. And that's the amount of time you need under current technological conditions to make enough antimatter to get to Alpha Centauri. You'd be faster off walking to get there.
So probably longer than the universe will exist into the future. So by the time you've got the kilogram or whatever you need to get to this nearest, the universe will probably have collapsed onto itself or something of that sort. I'm sorry, I'm like, probably an astrophysicist would correct me now, but so good luck on that one. But nevertheless, it's still amazing what can be done. There is amazing science that is being done. You wouldn't believe that it's there, but it's there. So it is amazing what humans can do. It's just, my question is kind of like from the very beginning, it was like, even if we could do it, like, should we be doing it? And I think that's the even bigger question. Like, should we be going out there? And I agree. I don't think that we're kind of an intergalactic locust that should just travel from one sweet pod to the next and kind of graze and feed everything off. And so I'm, I don't see humanity as that. And I've heard echoes of that, from some of those tech billionaires who say like, well, Earth is a very limited place and we need to go out into space because no, actually Earth is not limited. It can rejuvenate, it can regenerate. That's the beauty of life. And I think, we got to make sure that that's sustained, that keeps going. And the kind of arguments that have been put forward as well, that asteroids may eventually hit us, we're actually closer to detecting asteroids and deflecting them than ever before. It's much easier to work out a technology to do that and to save Earth that way, rather than just evacuating everybody to some place that's far too far out, which we'll never reach, and where there's no technology to take us there.
You came up with very human sort of things that, for example, you came up with a wonderful guy, a sexologist in space. What do we do with sex if we have to create generation after generation for 5,000 years of voyage or for 200,000 years of voyage. How do we do that?
Researchers have estimated that we might need up to 40,000 individuals, or maybe even less than 100. Those who argue for small numbers usually take into account that in this situation, we might want to use genetic technology. So for instance, bring with us a bank of fertilized egg that will be progressively implemented to provide that genetic diversity in the colony or aboard the spaceship.
Or the one that you filmed in a silo for intercontinental ballistic nuclear warhead in Colorado. He's originally, I think he's
Anthropologist.
Anthropologist, yeah.
Very interesting one.
Anthropologists are asking themselves questions.
The reality of going to another planet in our current environment, I think, is probably the best analogy is an Amazon fulfillment center. You won't be able to actually see where you are. You're going to be inside of a factory, and you're not going to experience what you think you're going to be experiencing. That is the kind of awe of being on another planet and experiencing being off of Earth. No, you're going to be working inside of a cubicle.
You managed to cover a lot of very interesting ground in this film. So what was the initial objective when you started, and how did it evolve as you continued researching and you talked to these individual, people, these sects and scientists and whatnot?
The original idea, of course, was that, I don't know how this came up, but I think it was sort of like one of Elon Musk's pronouncements. And he put cities on Mars and all this thing, these things about we have to go out there as a species and become interstellar, otherwise we're going to die out like the dinosaurs. And I was like, hang on a second, is this quite right? Should we be putting all these resources into this? So I think that's what kind of kickstarted. It's like I tend to be, I just enjoy taking the contrarian view and seeing is this really what we should be doing? And obviously these people have the power and the money to do quite a lot. It's just a question if that's well allocated. And frankly, I wish I could have a bit of a say in it. I mean, since they're using a lot of Earth's resources to accomplish these goals, it's their money. Okay, it's their money and they can do it in a way, whatever they want, but they're still using all resources. They're using a lot of intelligent people working on these programs. And so that kickstarted it. And then I started looking at the science and I was like, golly, the science is incredible, the kind of stuff people are doing. And you may think they're lunatics or whatever, but some of it's absolutely sort of amazing, like genius kind of science being used for this as well. So you can have these very different views about it. And so the more I dug into it, the more incredible stories I found. And these people, they're very interesting. I disagree with some of their visions and what they want to do, but I certainly don't think they're mad. I mean, they're just some of them very good scientists. So they're doing amazing stuff. So it's just that I do politely disagree with some of the objectives.
And Rudolph, I'd like to add something about Elon Musk. I think almost everything he's doing is good and right. He promoted electric cars at a time where hardly anyone was pushing it that hard. They existed before him, and he bought the company Tesla, but he was a real force behind the whole thing. He is the one who started reusable rockets, all wonderful things. I have to say something good about him. Only this idea of colonizing other worlds or colonizing Mars, I don't think is right, and I think it is something for a marketing tool to give the aura of visionary to it.
Yeah, we politely disagree. We politely disagree. I mean, that's fine.
Politely disagree because I love Elon Musk. If he goes to Mars and needs somebody to make a film en route and on Mars, I'd be on board.
I mean, you could have made an entire film about any one of these subjects, really. But you did a really nice job putting it all together and just kind of taking us basically on a journey, where we came out on the other end. And I'm with you. It doesn't seem like it's possible. Just the human body is too frail. We don't have the technology. It would take us 1 trillion years to get anywhere. Knowing all this, why do we keep pushing?
Yeah, I think I can unpick that for you, but there's no blanket answer for that. So the people in Copenhagen, they want to do the first kind of amateur manned mission into space. So actually going above the Kármán line, so into space. So and they're just driven by incredible enthusiasm. I mean, these people just like want to do it, and I love that. I mean, I think that's just so great. I think they're fantastic people. And I can see their motives. I think that's just wonderful that humans would want to explore and try out things and push boundaries. So I'm all for that. In terms of these companies that are sort of offshoots of big conglomerates, like Blue Origin is an offshoot of Amazon, and Virgin Galactic of the Virgin Group, and so on. And obviously Elon Musk's company is like, part of the Tesla and so on. So I think like there's a big commercial thing here. It's like commercial motives there as well. So it's quite different to the space race we had in the 50s or 60s, between the Soviet Union and the United States. And on one hand, it was probably married with the nuclear programs of both superpowers because they were developing rocketry, frankly. But it was also a matter of prestige, of showing like they were better than the other. And it's like a kind of tit for tat. So this is very different. This is kind of, how could we mine space, for instance? Like how could we, get rare earths or something? How could we capture things from space? How could we make it usable for us? And I read about that, but the same kind of exploitation and extraction that's happening on Earth is now being pushed into space, where it's even more elaborate and an even bigger waste of resources to do that. So I'm very concerned with that. So there might be sort of an enthusiasm in these people, and that they're competing against each other, and it's a manly thing for them. Somehow like only men seem to, like billionaire men seem to be doing this. So that could be part of it. But I think there are commercial interests there as well, which I'm sort of slightly suspicious of.
Of all the cutting edge projects driving today's space revolution, which did you find most interesting, and why?
I think what was very interesting is there's a man, Christopher Mason is his name. He's in New York. He works at Weill Cornell. And he's working on modifying the human genome to make us more able to go out into the hostile environment of space. So rather than finding technology to shield us, like some sort of elaborate radiation shields that frankly don't exist, might never exist, he's thinking of like taking genes of radiation-resistant bacteria or small microanimals and putting them into the human genome. And he's actually already doing that. So those cells, which are not cells of any living organism, they're completely a lab concoction, are able to take much more radiation, I think 10 times or 20 times more radiation than ordinary human cells. So this is quite interesting that he's working on this kind of like artificial kind of interstellar superhuman who'll be able to like breathe helium or like have like green skin to absorb sunlight so he can eat from the sunlight or something like that. So here we're getting into territory that's frankly very scary.
Yeah, you should not think it's a dry, scientific-based film. It's a lot of fun. You see, it's very joyful. It's very much joy of cinema as well. You can really enjoy it, and I wished the shooting was much longer, twice as long, so that I could hang out much longer. Wherever you looked, it was just fascinating and a lot of joy to handle shooting and to be with these people. It's all people with whom I would like to spend more time. And that should come across in a movie.
It does. It does come across very clearly. So how do you prep? How do you research and prepare for a project like this, where it's not just one specific subject, but you're talking about a lot of different aspects of a bigger sort of topic?
Yeah. I think one important thing is just to have a very clear structure of like where you want to start. And usually you would start where, with a dream, like that people look up at the sky and they'd see all these gazillions of stars. And we now actually know that there might be as many planets or more planets than suns or actual stars that we see up there. It's an incredible amount. And us wondering at that, and like, many generations or since the beginning of humankind, people have wondered what's up there. So I think that was a good starting point. And to see where are we at this point. I mean, we do, for instance, have the ISS up there, which is an incredible accomplishment. So we have a settlement in space, which has been in operation for 20 odd years or so. So it's incredible that that's been accomplished. So in that kind of starting there and seeing like, just working our way forward and seeing like, okay, well, here are the other planets in our own solar system. Like, could we reach them? What would we have to do to reach them? Why would we reach them? And then going on and venturing further out, because you'll find out that the ones that we have here in our proximity are very inhospitable. My father's mentioned it a bit, but it's like very bad, like you don't want to be there, really seriously. I mean, the best you can do is probably shoot yourself there in a little phone box, a little cubicle, drink your own urine, and hunker out there and then hope to not be fried by sort of solar storms, because there's not much of an atmosphere on Mars, for instance. So it's not pleasant. So to go anywhere that's more hospitable, you have to go far more out. And these places, of course, are very far away. So that gives you another host of products. So that's kind of the progression of the film seemed quite logical. So it's like, rather than being a chronology, it's a spatial journey. It's like you go further and further out and out and out and go out with our dreams. And then, of course, we learn all these things. So I think that's, I just kind of then, it's kind of conventional classical research of finding like what's there. And you just discover that there's a lot more going on than you would ever think that's out there.
It's not just technical research, what is out there and who is doing what, who is creating antimatter, who is a sexologist. And so in documentaries, there's such a thing like we have seen Rudolph and I in feature films, casting of characters. We have characters in there with whom you immediately want to have a barbecue out there, or you want to join them, you want to be with them. So it's the cast of characters that is so important.
This includes people I actually disagree with. I mean, like I respect their positions, and they're in there, and they're great people. Like no misunderstanding there. They have their own vision of how it should be, and like Marshall Savage and so on. Like I don't agree with everything he says, but he's like he's a great guy, and he probably means well. He means well. So I agree. I agree with that. Like casting's a bit, and like I actually want to have fun on a shoot. And actually, that was part of the idea as well. It's like we just wanted to have fun as well. I think you kind of see that in the film. But like me and my dad just wanted to travel a bit, meet these interesting people, go to these places, and just get blown away by these different ideas. So I think part of it sort of like following our own curiosity about the world and about what people are up to. Because some of the things you like in fiction, you can't imagine what people are really doing in reality. So like it is true that reality is crazier than fiction many, many times. And I think this film proves it again. I mean, we went to Israel, but I shouldn't give everything away. But there are things like you wouldn't believe they're real, but then you're in front of them and you think, oh, wow, it is actually real. The people are doing this.
Is there anything that happened when the camera wasn't rolling that you didn't include that was, either interesting or funny or outlandish?
No, everything's in the film. Like literally, like everything, every good frame, everything that's interesting is in the film. I mean, we're very, very precise. Like we're like actually like sort of like a surgeon coming in, and we just like, you know, filming is an expensive thing. It's like, you know, there's a lot of travel. We move some people, and then you have to be very precise. So every frame that's good, everything. I'm not withholding anything. Everything is there. And I think that I hope that comes across, because some of it's like funny, some of it's serious, you know, but like every moment is in there in the film.
That's fantastic. I mean, I know that that's sort of your process, Werner. You know, you've been doing this for a really long time, and I know that you know going in what you want to get, how you're going to get it, and there's no, you know, going through many hours of footage looking for the story. I mean, you've already got it. So this is the process that you, the approach that you took together, collaborating. This wasn't the first project, correct?
We've done some other things before, a little bit documentaries, and Rudolph was on the set of some of my feature films, and actually we have had an open line debating certain things that I did or that he did, and advising each other. I had a lot of advice from Rudolph when I do my films. So it's a very nice form of collaboration, and it's particularly enhanced because we are son and father, a father and son. And since he lives in Germany and I live in Los Angeles, we had the feeling we have to spend more time together. Let's do something. Let's raid a place in, let's say, Hawaii, and have some local Hawaiian people who speak their language, have them in the film. Let's go to Idaho and film with somebody who is a theoretician of space colonization, or let's meet Michael Fowle, who has spent more than a year in space. He knows what to do, and just looking at the face of that man, you knew, man, this is such a good character, like a real cowboy. You want to spend time with him. Let's spend time with a man, but be precise. We'll come and we'll surgically go in and do the right thing with a camera.
I think one of the benefits the audience will have is that just like, you want to go the extra mile if you've got your parent on set, right? Like everybody wants to impress their parents. Like very rare that people wouldn't want to do that. So basically, it's sort of like the way I saw it a bit was just like, I want to really make it worth my dad's while to be coming along for some of these shoots. So like every day to surprise him with something even more extreme than he'd seen the last day. So like I think the audience will actually benefit from that. So I actually mean that seriously. So it was good. It was very interesting because obviously I've been making films for 25 years or so, and made a lot of films, I've done a lot of films. And I think over time, like, I think I picked up a lot from my dad, but I think it was interesting, this project as well, and the methodology, how we differ. And that kind of was quite interesting to see, like how, I think probably for my dad, he'll have to speak for himself though, but we did have some interesting conversations because we'll do same things differently, and that's fine, and that's interesting. And
every day I would get up and I think, what the hell is he gonna toss at me today? Is it getting even wilder? And it got wilder. It's very, very strange, but never disappointing. Always fascinating and beyond all my expectations. And of course, I do my best to speak the English commentary. Although my son Rudolph's English is much better and much clearer, mine is wildly with a wild Bavarian accent. And yet I know that, it's okay. I can make myself understood. But when I speak a commentary text, I do it in a way I know that people listen. how I do that, I have no clear idea, but there's something performative in it.
I think this was quite interesting in a way, in the sense that I wrote the narration, and in a way that loops back to what I've just said, is that I, in a way, have a different way of approaching things, and that, like, I'm not really very present in my films, but it sort of dawns on you what I think as you're watching it. So you see a beautiful garden path and you think, oh, this is nice. So you walk along it and then it becomes dark. Some things happen that you don't expect. And then it sort of like dawns on you. So I think my dad, I'm sort of like, maybe this is too simplistic, but, he's a very authoritative in the way that he'll actually tell you straight out what he's upfront about what he thinks. And I think that's beautiful. So, but it's a different way of doing it. So now we have this kind of like thing where you're doing my method, but he's actually saying it. So in a way, it had to be written in a way that it sort of like still works for my dad's voice, but it's nevertheless true to my storytelling. So this was an interesting process, and I think it works well. But obviously, it's up to you folks, so the audience, to judge how well it works. But I think my dad just really nailed it.
I think I understood very well what he was doing, and I understood it even better because I was present during a good part of the shooting of the film. So that is a real collaboration, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud that in a way was executive producer. I earn it. I earn that credit just by the fact alone that I talked Rudolph into doing it. Are you crazy or something to even have doubts about the project? So, and he picked it up. So I deserve the credit.
How many days did you film?
Not a lot, awful lot, because this is a feature-length film, and you see a lot of different places. Now, I can't give you an exact figure. Actually, it sounds a bit silly, but I'm already in my mind on to the next. But it must have been around 20. We could have done with a couple more days, but I think this forced us to be even more razor sharp and precise. So, like when I say like every frame that's good is actually in the film, that's true. Like everything that is that is good, we cut in, and we are just razor sharp right there to get it done. So not a lot of shooting days, considering what you see on screen, the value that you see on screen.
Rudolph, I would say, is a rule of thumb for every episode, 1 day, 2 days of shooting maximum. You had to come in with precision because of COVID. Don't linger and loiter around. You just go and do it. Do it fast. Get out quickly, and you don't do the mediocre things. You go just to the jugular right away.
And it's also like, that doesn't mean you're not spontaneous. I mean, that's really important, I think, to understand for anybody who's a filmmaker, that being precise doesn't mean a shot list and then you like an idiot, like working through a shot list. Like, for instance, when we were in Crete, Colorado, it's a beautiful place, by the way, where Mike Fole lives, so this NASA astronaut. In the morning, where we met on an airfield, there was beautiful fog. And I don't know what these things for the wind, these kind of bags for the wind that was sort of like going like this, and there was fog, and it was just amazing. So like I quickly changed the plan and did some shots with him in this fog, because he appears out of the fog. So I think, you just still have to have the guts to be spontaneous when you're on set and you see that magical thing, you grab it. You don't lose that because you've got a plan. You change the plan. So it's a mixture of being precise, but also using those opportunities. So I guess that's to be kept in mind for anybody who themselves are making films. Is just never lose that. Never lose that we're documentarians and that we need to observe the world as it is in its beauty and splendor and complexity, and be ready to pounce when the occasion arises. So I think that's important.
Do you feel you left any stones unturned?
No, I think everything...
I like that because you're precise.
No, seriously. I think we developed it, I developed it of course, with some help, but over quite a time. And the general idea and structure always remained the same. But I think what really improved is the components. So like as we went on, we found even a more amazing science, even more up-to-date projects. And luckily, it just all came together. Sometimes like things fall in place in your wake. It just, it just galvanizes and it's there. You grab it and then you make it and then it's there to watch. So, no, absolutely not. There's everything that I have to say on this subject is in the film. I don't have anything to add.
And when did you know that the film was finished?
Well, the moment we delivered it. Obviously, it's a collaborative process. It's a collaborative process. And obviously, we don't know documentarian ever, except people who maybe finance everything completely themselves and show the films to their friends, work in some sort of a paradise where like everything, no, we're working in a collaborative way. There were people involved on the production side with very good comments. There was, of course, Discovery. There was Gunpowder and Sky, all with very good views of also what their audiences like and how stories are told for them. And, I think we married these things up, ways of storytelling. And so I'm quite pleased with that because you get pushed a bit. You sort of like, up to the last moment, you're on your toes and you want to get it exactly right. So no, upon delivery, and I've made the mistake in the past when I was a beginner to slack at the end or thinking, oh, I've kind of done it. And then I think, oh my God, like, that little thing, that little text, I don't quite like the font. And you know what? You've got to look at the font the way it is for the rest of your lives. Like every time you watch that film, you'll see the font you didn't like. So I learned the hard way 20 years ago, 15 years ago. You've got to be precise right up to the moment when that file gets delivered. So I think that's the way I'd answer it. But maybe other people have different answers to it. But I think that's the moment I let it go. But then it's sort of, it's done and it's for you to decide if you like it, if you don't like it, if you it opens a new space for you in your mind, if you benefit from it in some way, then it's up to the audience. It's no longer me. It's then its own kind of creation, which has to make its way in the world somehow.
Well, I think you've touched on everything that I wanted to discuss. Is there anything that we didn't?
No, watch it, please. I mean, watch it. Watch the film.
I watched it. I think it's fantastic.
Great. Thanks,
I really
Sonia.
thoroughly enjoyed
Sonia.
myself.
Okay, then it's been worth making it.
It's just a lot of joy to work on this film. I really enjoyed it, and I wish it were my film, but it's my son's film. I envy him.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's very interesting. You guys are epic filmmakers, so we're very, very grateful for you taking the time to join us. So thank you.